From here, this country looks just as the report says, barren and the vegetation sparse. But that's a common trap with doing aerial surveys of pastoral country. You have to get down on the ground to see what's really happening. However, down there is the kind of thing that's causing concern, water erosion. The vegetation is gone and deep gullies are forming. As a result, the water just races off the surface, down the gullies and straight into the Gascoyne River. And with the water goes a lot of the soil, which apart from ruining the country, could eventually cause the river itself to silt up. The department says more than half the river's catchment area is on the way to permanent ruin. But that's in direct conflict with many of the pastoralists who've gathered down here at Viveash station, which the department believes should cut its stocking rates by 75%.
All that's needed is these people from the glass houses in Perth should come up and have a look at the country. It's here to be seen, the improvement. Our figures prove this, as has been said, and our country is getting better year by proper management.
Viveash owner Lachlan McTaggart. He gets strong support from his son Sandy and his neighbours Bob Viveash and David Stedman. The argument is basically conservation against economics. To survive, say the pastoralists, we must maintain stock numbers. To survive, say the scientists, numbers must go down. And David Wilcox, who wrote the technical report, claims the evidence speaks for itself.
This is what we call our rangeland type sand dune Cape-Ann complex, and as you can see here, this large area which has got the bare area which is bare and just has a small layer of sand on top of clay is completely bare. It should formerly have had blue bushes and salt bushes on it. Now around the edge of this clay pan we have a whole lot of needle bush. Now these old needle bushes were obviously there before man came and put grazing pressure, whether by the sheep that he had or the kangaroos that he fed with the water. They were obviously there before man came. But all these young ones have now encroached out from the area around this clay pan and are now gradually moving across it. So effectively destroying this piece of vegetation as far as the animals are concerned.
If government accepts David Wilcox's report, then the stations will face 60% cuts. For Bob Viveash of Jimba Jimba, it would mean a drop from 16,000 sheep to 5.5. Quite unnecessary, he says, because the regrowth of both good and bad species is coming back fast and holding the country together.
There's been new plants established, buffalo grass has been planted, and buffalo grass has made a big improvement to this country, and buffalo grass has further stopped erosion in this country.
Well, Lockie, what do you think about the idea that the report is putting forward that stocking numbers should be cut back?
I think they're backing up the completely wrong tree altogether. It is incorrect that the country is going back.
Nobody can tell us that this country has actually gone back from, say, 20 years ago. We contend that this country is holding its own. In some cases, no, it's not, through bad management. But there isn't much of this, and I feel with the help of the Department of Agriculture, the erosion, with erosion management and what have you, that this side of it can be looked after. But we can only do this if all parties agree on this sort of thing.
Well, here we have a typical situation in the Gascoyne, and this is one of a very broad plain discharging water into the river. As you can see here, we are on the edge of this plain and it's discharging water into the river. Now what's happened, by whatever cause we like to put it, the vegetation has been stripped away. You can see there's no vegetation here at all. Through there being no vegetation, the soil is very, very prone to water erosion. The water, instead of flowing over the country in a thin sheet like this, is now being gathered by the scarring gullies and being coursed straight down to the river itself. What is the effect of this is that this country no longer receives the amount of water that it should. The vegetation just hasn't got a chance to compete, and it just gradually all slips away.
You must remember that these gullies were here 100 years ago. They haven't just formed in the last 20 and 30 years. There were gullies here hundreds of years ago. In fact, there's some gullies in places that are filling up now. Other gullies are forming in other areas. These gullies, this country wasn't without gullies 80 years ago.
At present, it's the sheep that are being blamed for the damage. However, they're not the only culprits. Bob Viveash.
Nobody here wants to get rid of the old kangaroo. We've got nothing against the kangaroo, but we can't afford to have kangaroos, goats and vermin in plague proportions. Righto, so we've got to reduce those. But they turn around, the fauna and fisheries say that we're wiping the kangaroo out. They get all these conservationists to come in on their side, people who know nothing about the country, virtually nothing about the kangaroo. This is what it all boils down to. People with too much money and too much time to do anything better than to stir up trouble.
We can't control the grazing by kangaroos. We'd had until very recently a very effective form of control of kangaroos, which we thought was going to be of great benefit to the pastoral industry. But because of this recent ban on the export of them, it has meant that the kangaroo industry as such has died, and there has going to be a great increase in the number of kangaroos. This is going to make it much more difficult to effect the regeneration of this sort of country.
And by its ban, the federal government has effectively removed controls on the kangaroo. All that's left is to reduce the sheep numbers. But as much as the sheep and kangaroos are fighting for the available feed, so too are David Wilcox and the pastoralists, who say they're doing the right thing by the country, encouraging regrowth where practical and putting right by good management the devastation caused by their forebears. David Wilcox isn't convinced. He believes that half the Gascoyne's 25,000 square miles must be rested, perhaps for as much as 10 years. If not, then the worst will happen.
I believe that the stocking as at present practiced and the management practices in the past which were adopted are continued, I believe that this country will continue to deteriorate. We've already shown that it has deteriorated considerably, and I cannot see, because we have so many pieces of unstable country now which are bared, which are gullied, on which we have range deterioration quite grossly, I can't see the situation remedying itself without some radical action to halt these destructive and erosive processes. I didn't consider at all the effects of number reduction on the pastoralists involved, because I believe that that's a social problem which is to be discussed by the board and also by the minister in charge.
Most of us, and in fact there's only about 4 stations that I've seen on the proposal that would be a viable proposition that would be left to operate, and even they'd be a pretty dicky show. It means that this area, this whole 25,000 square miles, will become a total liability on the taxpayer through the Agriculture Department. The area now is a viable, profitable concern, paying tax, helping to keep these bureaucrats in business. They're going to turn around now, chop off the income tax, and the tax is going to come out of this area, and I said before, make it a total liability on the government.
What do you think, Bob?
I agree wholeheartedly.
But it's a personal thing, is it? It's going to really put you out of business or something?
Well, it will put us out of business, as I've said before. Personally, I have put a lot of money into this country in one property here over 9 years. I have not taken a penny out of that property in the 9 years, and had I realised at the time that this was foremost in the mind of the department to close us up, I can assure you I would not have put my money into this country.
It may be that shortly the men of the Gascoyne will not be alone with their worry. The same tale is said to exist right through West Australia's pastoral country, in the Murchison, De Grey and the Fortescue. Within 6 months, the Rangeland Management section of the department expects to present another report, this time on the Kimberleys. The story is expected to be the same, and there's little doubt that the reaction there will be very similar to the anger expressed by the pastoralists in the Gascoyne.